What's going on, everybody? It's Childish. We're back at it again with the next event update for Might and Magic Elemental Guardians. As I'm sure you guys already know, there is a current event going on called the Akadimia World Cup event. So this is giving us an opportunity to collect some amazing rewards over the next 10 days, forcing us to build mono element teams in order to clear these stages and obtain those rewards. Now, what we're going to be doing today is talking about these specific stages, maybe a couple of tips for some of the newer players, some of the things that you need to consider when it comes to your composition or units that you can go ahead and try out for fun. But most importantly, I want to give you guys a big tip on why you definitely need to consider farming this dungeon after you are done. So I got to give a huge shout out to the Mmeg Discord community, a gentleman by the name of Dirge. Now, if you guys are not familiar with Dirge, he is constantly in the Discord community providing such great information for everybody. And we recently touched base early on this morning to provide a couple of tips based upon his knowledge and experience in the dungeon so that he can help out the rest of the community. So again, guys, if you have an opportunity to check out the Discord chat and see Dirge, please do me the favor, give him some love, as he is the main reason why we have the information that we have for you today. Okay, now before we get into the tips for the information, I did want to just throw out a couple more disclaimers out there, because I know there's going to be some new players that have recently started the game, possibly within the last week or so, that are probably going to be wondering, how in the world do we clear this content? It's super hard. Now, for any event that goes on, generally speaking, it's not something that we're going to be autoing, okay, guys? So if you are struggling on any of these stages, even given the recommendation that we provided you, I definitely encourage you to take off the auto button, as I know that's something we generally do in a game like this. You're definitely going to have to micromanage your skills in order to clear this content, okay? Of course, this particular event is forcing us to build new units, and that's something that we don't generally like to do, right? We have certain key units that people have recommended over time to use in our early game of progression, but as you guys might have guessed, new types of events are going to force us to build new units, and thereby it's going to give us an opportunity to learn more creatures within the 4 elements. So I'm actually a big fan of this because if you are somebody that has been stuck with the same 4 or 5 units for quite some time, now you're gonna have an opportunity to take a look at some different units, possibly some that may synergize well with the current units that you currently have that you can use for future content. And if we think about the topic of Rat Dungeon, we've been focusing on kind of working our way to it. Obviously, in the Strength and the Benefit Dungeon, we're going to have to be using different elements in there, so we might be able to find certain units that are going to assist us in those 2 dungeons, okay? A lot of these alternative units that you may be using, you're probably going to be using anywhere in the 3 to 4 star mark. For me personally, I built up a couple of units, but I kept them at the 3-star level 25, and then of course loaded them up with glyphs to provide them some great effective HP. So even though I probably won't be using it for certain stages or maybe certain things down the road, I still can use it for fodder in order to rank up my units. So again, everything that you use in these dungeons is not going to be going to waste. And then last but not least, this is a 10-day long event. I'm seeing a lot of people that are pretty aggravated because they can't clear this one within 24 hours of it being open. You guys got a lot of time to go ahead and level up these units, figure out which ones work the best for you. There is no need to rush the process, okay? Like I said before, the extra units that you're going to be using should be leveled to at least level 25. If it's a unit that you possibly thinking that you'll be taking up, then don't be afraid to give it a 4-star, because even though you may be able to use it in other aspects of the game, if for some reason you get a super OP unit that kind of trumps that one, you can still use that one to be fodder for your next 5-star. Okay, so now as far as to get into the basics of the strategy when it comes to dungeons, or just when it comes to just clearing content, we've already talked about it in countless videos, right? The damage mitigation, the debuffers, the AoE poisoners, the AoE heals, okay? Now, because of the fact that we're limited on certain specific elements, we're not going to be able to have all of those abilities, available for us. So what Dirge wanted to provide for you guys is talk about the 3 biggest things that have assisted him as well as myself, and a good majority of the people in the community, to assist them to clear with the content, okay? So if you don't have your AoE heals, if you don't have, crazy self-sustain units, something like that are, pretty heavy in support, the 3 biggest things that you can consider bringing are units with attack bar manipulation, are units with silence, and our units with poison mail. Outside of the water dungeon, all 3 of the other elements are going to not have any kind of immunity that you have to deal with. So an attack bar manipulation and the silence ability is pretty strong. In addition to trying to clear content, we've already talked about the value of poison and of course poison mail units out there. Anything that provides a fixated amount of damage, given the fact that these units are relatively tanky, is going to be able to assist you in clearing the content a little bit quicker. And of course, if you don't have the perfect AoE poison, the thing that makes poison mail super good is the fact that all these bosses that you're going to be taking on have an AoE attack or two. So that's multiple opportunities for that poison mail to trigger and provide you additional fixated damage going up against the boss. So again, really great insight from Dirge as far as the those particular things that he incorporated in his team. I was able to throw in a couple of those abilities and was able to do things just fine. Now, I know that I'm showing a little bit of gameplay in the background that has some of those units and some do not. But again, I've tested out a couple of these tips for you guys and it did work just fine. Okay, so first dungeon we're going to take a look at is the fire dungeon. Now, the boss that I'm going to be reading to you guys is the stage 5 boss. This is the lava dragon. Now this one here, if you're not familiar with it, it has a 65% chance of an additional attack, and I believe the AoE attack is or second skill is an AoE attack as well. So obviously when it comes to this unit, he's going to be able to do a ton of damage, but he's also going to be able to generate additional attack if he critically hits. So the cool thing about this one is that since he's fire, I do feel like this is going to be one of the ones that are easier for us because we have a lot of units that we have generally built prior to this dungeon that is going to be able to assist us. The water arcane bird, of course, probably one of the top ones there for damage mitigation and debuffs. Or if you are fortunate enough to get yourself the Ice Knight, it's a really good tank that you can go ahead and incorporate. Some of the fun units that Dirge took a look at as far as building was the water snakefly. If I recall correctly, that one had an attack bar manipulation as well as a poison. And then the water imp also had some single target poison abilities, but its second skill had a way of increasing the duration of those harmful effects. So if you do have something like that has poison mail, or if you have something that has a lot of, if you're going to be bringing a lot of harmful effects, using that water imp to improve the harmful effects, the duration of those harmful effects are definitely going to assist you in keeping the the lava dragon debuff and be able to do it. One of the debuffs that I was thinking about in this stage was the critical reduction buff, but I never got around to testing that one out. That could be an option for you if you want to reduce the amount of attack that he's doing, because of course it's all based on critical rate. However, just keep in mind that this is one of the 3 elements that don't have any kind of immunity. So if you do want to play around with attack bar manipulation, CC, of course on the ads, but when it comes to the boss, attack bar manipulation or even silence, that's going to be able to assist you in preventing him from doing those heavy amounts of additional attacks by means of that critical rate. Okay. And so the next one that we're going to take a look at is the water dungeon. Now this one here, stage 5, is bringing the water colossus. I think some people actually, I kind of saw a mixed feeling on this one from the community. Some people struggled with it, some people didn't. I personally had a little bit more of an issue for it, simply for the fact that it had a lot of beneficial effects that just made it super hard to control the boss. It has the elemental advantage defense buff, it has just the regular defense buff, it has a cleanse and an immunity. So even if you were to bring something like the air unicorn to put in the beneficial blocker, it wasn't going to be able to prevent it because this unit can cleanse before it puts on its beneficial effects. So this one here, I basically incorporated my main, obviously I have some really good strong units there, but when I was testing it out with different units, the main ones that I played around with was the air basilisk plus the air golem. I used those two to control the water colossus so that I'm able to not allow him to provide that immunity buff. Obviously the air basilisk is heavily reliant on the critical rate, so again, if you build it correctly, you can definitely control the boss and provide those poisons. The air golem though, he was one that had that the third skill ability had the 80% reduction, so both of those are great options if you can use it. The rune sentinel was one that Dirge found out that he likes as well. This is another type of air defender. A lot of the defenders out there, regardless of the element, have some kind of either self-sustain or some kind of a shield to prevent your allies from dying. So for me, I definitely would have recommended or would have tried that one out, but I already had other units built. But the biggest one that he found is actually a 1-star unit, is the Air Lizardman Warrior. This one here has a passive that has basically a poison mail built into it. So again, I know that this is going to sound like a lot of work, but if you are definitely struggling on this one, if you do have a little bit of crowd control and you're struggling on this one, you can use the Lizardman Warrior, build up a couple of these and use this passive to provide you all the poison mail when you get hit from those AoEs. So again, this is going to be a little bit tricky considering the fact that you have to deal with the immunity of the Colossus. But if you have a purge or if you have some kind of a strip, then you can take advantage of it. But again, since it's not something that's completely reliable, I'm a big fan of some of the 2-star units that you can take advantage of. Again, the Air Basilisk plus the Air Golem, those are really, really good units that you can go ahead and kind of micromanage in order to control the boss. And if at the very least, if you don't have something that can control the amount of attack by manipulation that you do, I would just say focus on the ads, bring everything that you can to go ahead and prevent yourself from dying. Bring as much sustain as possible. Even the basic units that you had initially, the Air Nymph or the Air Stone Guard, if you still have those around, obviously it's going to take you an exceptionally long amount of time given the fact that that's a single target heal. But anything that you can do to keep yourself alive while you take those units down one by one is going to be very, very helpful. Now, moving on to the next dungeon, which is the Earth Dungeon. This one has the Earth Goblin Shaman. He has an AoE strip as well as a defense break on the 3rd skill, and then his 2nd skill is going to provide an AoE silence. Now, this one here was actually the one that I think the majority of people are going to be struggling on, simply for the fact that the fire element out of all doesn't have a lot of 2-star options when it comes to sustain units or when it comes to healers, right? For me, I was super fortunate to be able to pull a couple of great units for this stage. Now, I pulled the Fire Nymph a while back. She has an attack bar manipulation. She has attack bar boosting, excuse me. She has a resistance buff, an attack buff, and of course she's a healer as well. So really just overall a great unit. This is one that I potentially will be using on the arena defense side down the road. But as far as this stage go, she's really, really nice given the fact that the resistance buff may in fact help you prevent the boss from stripping your buffs and whatnot. So when it comes to this unit or this stage, I think the biggest thing that you guys can consider is the poison mail. I think that this is probably going to be one of the best stages to do it, and the reason why we recommend this, or Dirge recommends this, is that the one of the 2-star units that you guys can take advantage of is the Fire Ghost. Now, if you're not familiar with this one, or if you have this one, definitely lock one. Put this one in your favorites if you don't, because this one has a 3-turn poison mail with a 4-turn cooldown. It's really, really good, and then if you combine it with a unit that has some kind of an AoE slow, or maybe another unit that could provide you a speed buff for your team, this is going to allow you to consistently keep up the skill. You being able to get some more skills over time versus the opponent or versus the shaman, and just allow you to almost maybe virtually keep up a 100% uptime for that specific skill. But some other fun units that Dirge was using, and one of these units I actually had was the Fire Arcane Bird. This one is another one that provides the attack bar boost as well as an attack buff, and it also gives you another opportunity for AoE poison. Of course, poison mail, I'm a big fan of that since he has 2 AoE attacks, so that's going to be a lot of poisons coming your way. But if you do have the Fire Arcane Bird, it is a great option. It does have an elemental advantage buff for offense as well as defense, but that doesn't really matter too much given the fact that you already have the elemental advantage and disadvantage. That's already considered. But again, if that is a unit that you have, maybe you haven't built it up, I promise you, you're not going to go wrong in 3-starring it or even 4-starring the Fire Arcane Bird. That is an exceptional unit that I still use to this day. I'm a big, big fan of that one. And then one of the fun units that I did mess around with a little bit was the Fire Golem. If you guys don't have this one, this was another good one as well. This one has a passive that provides a reflection damage, or reflects a certain amount of damage, and it also has a poison, essentially a poison mail built into it. So it's a really, really unique unit. It's a defender as well. So if you have a team that has a lot of sustain that can keep it alive, all those AoEs are going to be eventually hitting them and providing those poison mail effects. So this one here, again, is probably going to be one of the ones that people struggle the most with because of the healers. But if you don't have the healers, I think the biggest thing to consider here is the poison mail. And then if you don't have the poison mail, then of course the silence ability so that he does not silence you. And then of course put that defense break on so that he potentially knocks you out in a couple of hits. Okay. Next and final stage we want to take a look at is the Air Dungeon. Now this boss was definitely a pain in my butt. The Air Diva. This one has an AoE strip in a turn bar manipulation on the third skill, and then in second skill, another AoE has an AoE resistance debuff in addition to a stun. So this unit is going to lock you down and not going to allow you to get as many turns as you would like. Some of the fun units for this one that I've actually used in various stages is the Earth Bright Fawn. This one is a 2-star unit that provides an attack and defense buff as well as an immunity for 1 turn. Now this is something that you can skill up if you want to improve the amount of the amount of attack buff and defense buff that you get. You can bring that up to 3 turns as well as the immunity up to 2 turns. So this one can definitely do well. Obviously, you have to deal with the strip of the third skill if you cast it. But it does give you another option if you are trying to prevent yourself from getting stunned there. The next unit that we're going to take a look at for the Dirge, the next unit that we're going to take a look at that Dirge recommended is the Goblin Trickster. Now, this is a 1-star unit that also has the Poison Mail ability. So if you are looking for some units that provide the poison mail, then that's going to be a great option for you. Another one that he wanted to mention was the Earth Arcane Bird. This unit actually has a skill reset, so if you're able to get the first turn, if you do what you need to do as far as stage 4, killing those last couple of units, saving your skills for the final stage, then using that ability to go ahead and reset the boss is going to be really, really nice, and it's going to give you a little bit of time to kind of micromanage your ability so that you make sure that you have that immunity up when he goes. Now, again, I'm a big fan of the silence on this one. Attack bar manipulation is an option as well. But the biggest thing I think for this one to take advantage of is if you are fortunate enough to have some of those poisoners out there, the Earth Basilisk or the Earth Felicor, just bringing a ton of AoE poisons for me is what got the job done. But at the very least, if you don't have the standard abilities or don't have units that provide the self-sustain, then the poison, direct poison as well as poison mail was a really good option for this one, as well as the silence ability. Even if it's single target, being able to control the air diva if you can is really, really nice. Okay, so again, guys, these are just some of the basic tips that we want to throw your way. Again, you're gonna have to invest into some of these other units that you're leveling up. Get them up to level 25, 3-star. Get some glyphs on it. Focus on the glyphs that can provide you the most amount of effective HP. If you have specific units that you're building that are going to provide certain harmful effects in order to mitigate the amount of damage or provide you a little bit more turn advantage, please make sure that you are incorporating either certain sets or certain main stats on those glyphs to provide you the accuracy that you need to keep your debuffs landing consistent. That's going to be it, guys. Again, we got to give a huge shout out to the Discord community, but I want to give my personal thank you to Dirge. Again, he was recently reached out to me, or we connected, in the previous and private message and whatnot, to talk about a couple of things that we provided you guys as far as some tips to kind of get you guys started for this event here. So again, if you guys see him in chat, please feel free to give him some love. I know that he would greatly appreciate it. Okay, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's your boy Childish, or ChildishPlays, checking out. Take care. We will see you all in the next one. I'm out.